Good afternoon, and welcome to the Pasco Public Facilities District Board meeting. Agenda packets are available on the City of Pasco's website at www.pasco-wa.gov under the Public Facilities District Board webpage. This meeting is also being televised live on PSC-TV channel 191. On Spectrum Cable in Pasco and Richland, and is streamed on the city's Facebook page, website, YouTube channel, and Microsoft Teams. Lastly, the public may submit their comments and or questions by contacting the city clerk. So at this point, it is 4:04, Tuesday, December the 13th, and I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. And Crystal, if you'd please the roll call.
Caroline Bowdish.
Here.
Leonard Dietrich is excused. Marie Gillespie.
Here.
Dr. Spencer Gillette.
Here.
And Mark Morissette.
Here.
4 board members present. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Recognition of visitors, public comments, not seeing anybody and nobody out there on the World Wide Web, then we can go through, check off item number 2 and go to number 3, approval of minutes. And the meeting minutes that we're asking to be approved is the November 15th, 2022 meeting minutes.
Okay, I move to approve the November 15th, 2022 PFD board meeting minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
So it was moved by Caroline, seconded by Spence to approve the November 15th, 2022 Pasco Public Facilities District Board meeting minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And are there any opposed? Hearing no opposed, the motion carries. Claims approval. Included in your packet, back here on page 1 of 1, and Griselda will help me if I need help. There's a payment register, and you can see in our meeting minutes the claims approvals that we need approved is $676,531.38. And if you look at our payment register, you'll see the list there of those claims to be approved. So if you could take a look, and then if there are any questions, now's the time to go ahead and ask. And if there are no questions, then I would entertain a motion to approve the claims approval.
I move to approve the payments of the claims from July 1st, 2022 through November 30th, 2022 in the amount of $676,531.38.
Is there a second? Just find it.
I'll second it.
Moved by Spence and seconded by Caroline to approve the claims approvals. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, hearing no opposed votes, the claims approvals are approved. Next item on the agenda is the third quarter through November 30, 2022 financial report and the detailed revenue activity report, which goes from July through November. So isn't that 4 months there that what we're doing here? Okay. So if I could get some help to point out which report in our packet is the detailed revenue activity report?
You just looked at the payment ledger.
Yes.
On the next page, really the next 2 pages, is just revenues. That it's essentially the same idea as the payment register, but this is on the revenue side. and it's outlining individual receipts that we've made during that time frame.
So is that what you're identifying as the accumulated transaction
Yes,
listing?
yes.
Okay.
So the total in that time was the $322,483.60.
Where did you get that number
Oh,
from?
on the bottom at the second page, just the grand total there, on page 2 of 2 of the accumulated transactions listing.
Is the dollar amount again, please?
322,400.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
So that is our revenue during this period of time, was this 322,000?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, so then, typically what would happen is we would tie in like this revenue number of the 322,000 into the budget performance report.
Yes, the budget report, performance report. So, so you're on that page 1 of 2, and the current month's transactions will reflect only November, and then anything that's happened prior to that is reported in the year-to-date transactions. So you can't necessarily tie that $322,000 number to one column in this report. But it does show that our year-to-date transactions through the end of November, revenue-wise, are higher than what we budgeted
Okay.
related to sales tax receipts. And then, so the revenue section is first, and then expenses are below the revenue, and outlining by either 53s, which are supplies, or 54s, which are services.
Okay. So then I'm thinking and guessing eventually we'll kind of smooth, we're adjusting to a new format for presentation. We'll kind of smooth this out. So that, for example, the third quarter, July, August, September, but we have 4 months in this third quarter?
Right. I think as we get into, that's kind of a little bit of a topic that we're going to touch on later, talking about finances and reporting and the interaction between the PFD and the city, and moving forward to a whole new, a lot more activity. We'll be meeting more frequently and giving reports more often. And so you'll have the same format, because this is right out of our accounting software, but it will be more frequently and we can give more detail.
Okay.
And I would just augment too, ideally it would have, before the change to the way the material was presented, would have liked to have done section 8 before we are in section 3 and 4. But because we have a prescribed agenda, this is the order that we are. So that Darcy, I think, gave a preview of some of the discussion for section 8 on the agenda. Appreciate your patience.
Question. This is a little bit after we've already approved this, but could the law firm tell us why for the last, usually we're paying $15,000. This last month it was $47,000. Is there a reason for that?
The only thing that I can conclude is that those are billables that were maybe incurred throughout our election period during this last summer. That was my thought, because I noted the same thing, that's abnormally high from what typically you would see on a quarterly report. The only conclusion that I can come to is that was related to extra work that went into getting that ballot proposition on. I'd have to confirm that with Eric, our managing attorney, to be certain, but that's my best educated guess.
Is there an invoice sent for that, and does someone review that?
I don't know how. I would presume, since PPFD is a separate entity from the city that they would be billed separately. So I know we send monthly invoices to the city. I don't know is that typically what we do? Do we include PPFD on the city's bill? I couldn't imagine that would be the case. They're separate bills. So what we could do is, I don't know where those typically get routed. They go to the finance department? Okay, so if you would like, what we could do is we could start getting those quarterly invoices out to the board too, so you all could look at those and see what those line items are. But it sounds like right now they're being routed through finance department, so.
I don't necessarily have to look at them, I just want someone to look at them.
I wonder if it would be acceptable if follow up, and if for some reason it's not, as the attorney described, would follow up.
We did our bylaws and that kind of stuff too that last quarter. So I imagine that's some of it as well.
Okay, Darcy, could you help me with one more thing then? So under agenda item number 5, then the third one is the balance sheet.
Yes. I
Is there a
don't-
balance sheet somewhere embedded in this, or?
It looks like it's missing from the packet, we can send that over.
Oh, it's okay, as long as you know we're okay.
Yes.
We'll include it next time. Okay, very good, thank you. So then leads us to the motion.
And I would note too that the motion is, by the way, on the alternative agenda that we've set out on your desk. There was a need to put that on this agenda before the end of the year. So the agenda you got earlier didn't have that. So I would just augment that. Darcy would like to augment on the specifics of that supplement.
I can speak to the amendment. We just in the last couple council meetings, took our supplemental budget requests to council and presented them. And one of those was for the PFD fund. Our expenses are over what the original planned budget was, and that is related to election costs. And it really is for both 2021 and 2022, since we have a biennial budget, but it's related to the election costs that were not necessarily in line with what the budget had accounted for, and more sales tax revenue, which in turn we pass some of that through to Kennewick PFD, so it makes our expenses higher and our revenues are higher as well, but we don't have to ask for more authority for revenues, only expenditures. So those two things are the primary drivers for the need to increase the budget. And so we're asking for you to approve that motion so that we can make the budget adjustment on the city's books and make sure that we satisfy all audit needs.
Okay, so then, Darcy, help me then. The motion that we'll ask the board to approve, it reads, I move to approve the supplement to the 2022 Pasco Public Facilities District budget in the amount of $860,000. Okay, so then, does that $860,000 show up, like, for example, in this amended budget column in our budget performance report?
It does not yet, because we haven't actually amended it yet. We're waiting for that
Okay, so we don't
approval.
have a proposed budget to look at here.
No, it doesn't look like it.
Okay.
I think it just has the title of amended budget. Throughout the year, we do make amendments, typically.
So that was our last amended budget, I guess.
Correct. If there's
okay.
if there's been any, it may be that, the PFD, I don't know, have they made any? No. It
Okay.
really is your adopted budget. And then now we are making one amendment to make sure that we have appropriations authority for actually funding that's already been spent, but we want your approval, and we have asked council for their approval, and that way we can get everything on the same level.
Okay,
Yeah.
very good.
Thank you.
All right. Then I would entertain a motion to approve the supplement to the 2022 Pasco Public Facilities District budget. I think if you just read that.
I move to approve the supplement to the 2022 PPFD budget in the amount of $860,000 as presented by the City of Pasco finance staff.
Is there a second to that motion?
I can't even find it.
What's that?
Where is this 860,000?
It's not on there. So they'll
It's
put
not
it
on
on there
here.
after we approve it. So this
Oh.
is the last budget that we have.
Okay. Okay, so I'll second it.
Yes, sir. So Spence made a motion to approve the supplement. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, thank you, Caroline. So it was moved by Spence and seconded by Caroline to approve the supplement to the 2022 Pasco Public Facilities District budget in the amount of $860,000 as presented by the City of Pasco finance staff. All those in favor signify by saying an aye. Is there any opposed? You gonna vote on this one, Maria, or abstain?
I can't vote on this. I don't see $860,000 anywhere in these numbers. I don't know what I'm voting on.
Okay, so does that mean you're just going to abstain or vote no?
If I might, Mr. Chair, I'm too would share concern on adopting something that's not in written form in front of us, and I would not have put this on the agenda if it were not for in it being timely. What I can offer in talking with Ms. Buckley is following the meeting tomorrow, possibly, the actual material could be emailed to the members. I would do this, it is possible we could have another special meeting before the end of the year. We're trying to make an accommodation here, so there is a little bit of faith that staff are going to follow up with the material on that one.
And if it
So
helps,
starting January, do we start a new accounting year for us? Okay. So then is this 860,000 now, is it for this year or next year?
yes, it's for the end of this biennium, so ending in 2022. So it has nothing to do with the coming year. It's for this past, we have a 2-year budget. And so,
The city does or we do?
the city
Yeah,
does. Oh,
okay.
okay, the city does.
Yeah, because I don't think we do.
Okay, so it's 860, but that's 2 years worth, isn't it?
Right, so on the far column here where it says budget year to date transactions, so you see how the negatives, that is saying how much is over budget as of 11/30.
So what page are you on there, Gracie?
On the budget performance report, the 1 of 2.
Okay,
That doesn't add up to 860,000.
Right, and that's as of 11/30. So we're estimating what we think the budget will be, how much budget will be needed as of the end of the year. So we're trying to project a little because this is essentially the last meeting of the year, and we need to have that budget authority for the end of this fiscal year.
So we're projecting to spend another $350,000 over budget in the next month?
So the 800, and that's for all expenses, and a large part of it is the tax revenue that we receive. There's still 2 months worth because that is 2 months behind from the state from when we get the tax revenue. They're 2 months behind from when it's receipted and once we receive it here and then pass it on. So there's really 2 months worth of tax revenue, which is pretty high every month, and then that gets passed on to the city, to the Kennewick PFD. So that's the biggest portion of the expense that we're anticipating.
What have those monthly amounts been over the last few months?
Let me look real quick.
Because I see them as like 178,
so each column stands on its own.
80.
So, hey, Gracie, then the flow through that goes to the Kennewick Public Facilities District, it is that account number 54.4540 organizational services?
Yes.
And I can, oh, I'm sorry, I can see, if you look at the payment register page, you can see various payments that have gone to the Kennewick Public Facilities District. And so like on November, we sent them $81,000. So that would be 1 month's worth. So we really have 3 months worth remaining to be paid as of the end of November. We have December's and then January and February's, but they're always looking back as sales tax collections. So we need to remit all 3 months' values to them, which we have to make an accrual entry to do. So we don't really know until after the fact, and that's where the estimating comes into play to a certain part. And also, if we can have too much budget for expenses and not spend it, but we can't have too little. We need to make sure we have enough expense authority for what we spend. Even if we spend under it, that doesn't cause a problem. But if we spend more than we have allotted for, then we have a problem. So we are estimating high, but to make sure that we don't overspend our authority.
I don't know if it'd help here. I'm having a little bit of deja vu when I was a council member for many years, where we would have a bit of we'd do something like this as a council, and Mr. Zabel's here tonight too, and this is not an uncommon thing this last thing is a little bit, it's not rock solid the way one would want to feel. What's your thought, Mr.
Yeah,
Zabel?
as the finance director said, we need to make sure we have sufficient budget so we don't go over our budget. We can't end the year in the negative. And so the finance department's done the best they can to try to estimate. I think one of the challenges for the board and for staff this has been a bit of an unusual year because we did not walk into this year planning for some of the things that were going to happen or knowing really what kind of expenditures we'd see in the last few months with the election, with the things we had to do to reposition and restructure the PFD to come up to state statute, changes in state statutes and those type of things that Mr. Ferguson's office worked on and Mr. Briggs. And so I think the numbers are a little bit bigger than what you'd normally see. I know I was kind of surprised when I took a look in the packet too, but after thinking on it, it kind of makes some sense given all that has transpired over this year. Hopefully that's helpful.
So I'm gonna see if I can maybe put a little bit of a bow on this conversation here. I'll try. So the $860,000 that we're being asked to approve, and then if I look at your budget performance report, and I'm on page 2 of 2, and under the Fund 931 for the Pasco Public Facilities District, this $860,000 that we're being asked to approve, does it connect to that expense total of $876,325, which would be for 11 months?
It partially does, yes. So, yes, you can see that in the very last column, the most right-hand column, we're already, as of November, we're over budget $354,000. That's how far we are over budget as of the end of November. So, and what that number is the original budget on the far left-hand column of $521,000, and then what we spent year to date, which is the $876,000, leaving us over budget by $354,000. And then in finance, we've looked at what we know or anticipate will be coming expenses, like the sales tax that remains to be passed through of about $80,000 for 3 months, and other things that are a possibility. And it is a conservative estimate to make sure, and that's where we've come up with the additional, almost half, to make sure that we get things closed up and that we have enough expense budget for all the spending that is going to be recognized as of 12/31. So there's probably a little bit of lag between what's actually been spent at the end of November, and then we'll go through the end of December. We'll make sure we pick up all the things that need to be recorded that are a 22 expense but maybe haven't been paid yet, but they'll be recorded here. And that just gets us to our hopefully under $860,000 necessary, but we'll have enough authority with your consent to be safe.
So then at this point in time, I do have some hesitation on our vote in terms of, I would much rather see if we're gonna vote on a financial report that we have 100% approval or unanimous approval on this thing.
Okay.
So is it okay if so Mr. Attorney, how do we do this where are we going to, we had a motion, it was seconded, there was a vote, there was 3 in favor and 1 person hasn't voted yet. So at this point in time, how do we pull our vote back to give a chance for the numbers to kind of get reconciled and fleshed out a little better, I guess? I'm not sure what the word I'm looking for. So how do we pull back our vote to
I think
give
we
us?
had a partial vote, and then kind of in the process of that vote, we had some discussion. I don't know that our board member, Mrs. Gillespie, had ever taken an affirmative vote one way or the other. So I think the way to address this would be, am I coming through okay? Would be to either move forward on that vote, or I think to potentially table this matter and bring it back for a special meeting with those documents to be presented to the board would be the next best step, because as I understand it, this is our last meeting of the year. So we would need to probably try to squeeze one more in to make sure that we have this kind of final, crucially important piece wrapped up, so that our budget trues up at the end of the year. Correct? So my suggestion would be that if we don't act on this item tonight, it sounds like maybe the board has some apprehension with that, that we're going to set this over for a special meeting for that purpose.
Before December 31st.
Say again?
Before December 31st.
Yes. Yes.
So do you know when we're voting on officers again?
I don't know.
Planning to put that on the January meeting.
No, I just tease it. Well, we can withdraw it, but then they want us to approve the budget before the accounting year ends, which is December 31st, 2022. So then we would need to come back to vote on this.
And ideally, probably before then, so we could give some lead time on the back end for our finance department.
What the one concession, or I guess offering that I can make, is we can make an Excel spreadsheet that looks like, this is out of our accounting software, so the way we change these numbers is we actually put in an approved budget adjustment. And since we don't have one, we can't do that, but we could make an Excel spreadsheet that would make it look like we had, and then you would see the numbers work their way across. It just probably would have to do it tomorrow, because we'll have to go look at which category it should be in to really have the meaning, that would be valuable. But at least you could tie.
Yeah, and could there also be a little bit more detail behind what the numbers are, like the 500,000, 507, or 807, excuse me, for organizational services? Maybe you went over this already and I missed it.
Yeah, what I can do is that year-to-date transactions, we can run basically that accumulated transaction report, and it will list every entry that has been posted to those different types of expenses, and you would see what each one is, and they would, total up to the number that's in for example, organizational services 807. It would show every transaction that makes that number up for the year.
So that would make me feel more comfortable.
Okay.
And Mark, if you want to go forward, if everyone else is fine, I don't know that you need a unanimous vote.
Well, I would like it, but if it's not. So, so we could go ahead with the vote, and how do you want to vote? Yes, no, or abstain?
I would abstain.
Okay,
because
that's fine.
I don't understand enough to be able to.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm good with that. So then what we would do then, it sounds like, is we would go ahead with our vote. It'd be 3 yes and 1 abstention. And then you would follow this up by putting together an Excel report that would go ahead and lay these now approved budget compared to the actual numbers.
Correct.
And then that would be provided to the board members as like an information item to where we wouldn't have to meet again before December 31st.
Yes. We can email that out to you if that
Okay.
sounds
Yes.
sufficient.
And we don't need it by tomorrow,
Okay.
but if you could,
We can get it turned around
Sure.
pretty quick and get it back to you. And also the accounting of the detail of what that entries
Sure.
have been, so that you can see what was spent in what category and feel good about that.
so then Spence, do you want that same report for legal services also?
I would like that report for legal services.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the only thing, I don't know the detail in the
Invoice.
report, yeah, the detail in the invoice might not show very clearly. Well, it won't show, because the invoice, of course, is a full page, and it probably has these itemized topics that the legal team has helped us with, and whereas that won't come through on just the query of the system, so we might have to do a little more digging to get you better details per invoice, but we'll work on that. And
Sure.
if we
Well, at
can
least we can
pass them
start
through,
with that.
We'll do that. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So then, the motion carries, 3 yes votes, no votes, and 1 abstention. So the motion carries. Okay. Thank
And
you,
just to be
everybody.
clear, the follow-on too is going to be, finance is gonna update with an email, say by the end of the week, with the details about the budget supplement, and then also get some additional information from the, attorney's fees.
Okay. And then at what point do you think we're going to start putting together the 2023 budget? Is that the day after tomorrow? Sorry.
Probably a pretty good topic for, the bulk of this agenda's intention is section 8 of the agenda this evening, and I think that would probably be a good part.
So that'd be a January board meeting.
Yes, we'll talk, I have a presentation related to kind of the accounting that we undertake, and then also what the finance department does, and some things that have questions and want to kind of talk about with you all, to kind of lay out the considerations moving forward as lots of things change related to the PFD. So that feeds into your question of budget, and so as I go through that, I hope it gives opportunity for us to talk about things and think about them, and then we'll go from there and have lots of new things to do and work together on.
Very good.
Thank you.
All right, so agenda item number 6, reports from committees, updated project schedule. Marie and Matt, are you gonna go ahead and lead that, or is Matt leading that? Marie?
Matt's going to lead that.
Okay,
Okay.
good.
And
There's a good committee chairperson right there. I think that's an example for all of us to follow.
Well,
Go
and
ahead.
as the lead on this, I immediately want to thank Ms. Gillespie for coming down, not only on a Friday, but also offering some other Fridays as well. On your desk is an 11x17 that is an update. Ms. Gillespie and I talked a little bit about it. I've got some newer software to try to be able to track the schedule that we're doing, and we had some discussion. What you see in front of you is not an end product. It's still a work in progress. I think it's a little bit more mature than the one I gave you several months ago. It's also updated, and I think if you take a quick look at it, what you're going to find is a yellow section, green, blue, and orange. The yellow and the green section, for example, are related to some items that are on the agenda today about an owner's representative and also financial analysis, personal services agreement. You'll notice those two have some sub-items with some specific detail. My intent and hope is that our project schedule will become much more detailed as we go. However, in the section in the orange, you're going to find some broad subjects that are fairly vague about what all they include, because can't tell you what all they include yet, but did set specifically, Marie and I talked and made the suggestion of having a ribbon cutting date of June 1st, 2025 as being reasonable. And then we'll be working on filling backwards those details in orange with more detail, especially also as we talk about an owner's representative. So what I'm showing you is a updated schedule with some detail, and then some detail purposely not there, in a better format that's going to be used more and more as we move forward. That's the overall summary for that. How would I hopefully have characterized it similarly to Ms. Gillespie's thoughts on this?
I think this looks like a good start. Thank you.
So call this an FYI, no action needs to be taken on it, or if there's any questions about the software or the details, I can take questions as well.
Any questions for Matt or Marie? All right, so hearing none, then we will move on to agenda item number 7, old business.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Spence.
As I look at this, it shows that the owner's representative, we get the RFQ, and we're getting into the evaluation of those. And then it shows board review and go-ahead is done by well before the end of December.
Well, actually, that's today's meeting, actually, and that's I'm going to have that a little further on the agenda.
Okay.
The detail on that.
Okay. I just didn't, okay.
So
I'll wait to hear.
Yeah, the board go ahead. Actually, I meant to put exact today's date, but a week early from our regular meeting, so it should say 12/13. So good catch.
So we're ahead of schedule already, Matt. Good job.
Glass half full.
Yep.
Okay, old business update on the facilities district and the city of Pasco's interlocal agreement and bridge loan. Zach?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick update. We handed out the draft interlocal agreement to this board last month. So if there were any comments or questions, we're certainly taking them either through Mr. Watkins or myself. We currently have the draft ILA under review with legal and with finance. I think as we talk about finance's role with the PFD, that's going to be further defined in the interlocal agreement as well. So we look to bring back more complete document in January on that. Same with the bridge loan. We determined that the best course of action would be the budget supplement to bring this year's budget in line, which we've discussed at length, and we'll discuss at length further in the meeting as well. And then as we look to draft the 2023 budget, that would determine the bridge loan that we would bring back for review and approval by the PFD to take to the Pasco City Council. So just a quick update on those two items, and we'll take any questions.
So that paperwork will be provided to us at the January meeting, the final?
Yes, unless there's any comments based upon the draft that I gave to the board last month.
Are there any comments from, so you're asking if we have any comments this afternoon?
Or a reminder, if you do have comments, please feel free to provide those to Mr. Watkins or myself on the interlocal agreement. Not to put the board members on the spot this evening.
Sure, no problem. So if you don't hear anything from us within a relatively short period of time, then it sounds like at the January meeting will be the agreement that we can vote on and sign.
Yeah, I believe that's a reasonable timetable.
Matt?
Yeah, and I think that I keep talking about Section 8 on the agenda tonight, and one of the things that I've been finding in this, as we've been working out this process on how the PFD is going to do its important project, using Pasco staff, I think that very process of doing that bridge loan and the ILA has exposed some additional questions. So it's a bit of an evolving process, and I think the board has been trusting that the city's got the PFD's back, and when it's fully cooked, I think is the time to bring it back. If the PFD would like to do that formally in January, that's certainly an option. I would say give us a little bit of discretion here. It's probably going to be January or February is when it's really fully cooked to be adopted. Is that a fair summary, Mr. Brackey?
Yes.
My hope would be that the schedule report that we received and the budget, that what we're going to try to accomplish during 2022, that it gets measured and calculated and put into that 2023 budget for us, so that we have a connection between the line items and what our action items are going to be off of our scheduling report, so that we financially and actual action items that they connect.
Yes, and that is going back to the schedule, trying to have fidelity with what we cover in the meetings being on the schedule is something that I and we are striving for. It is taking a little bit additional work to make sure that those various structures are going to be available and everybody understands what that's going to be from a staff perspective. And it has taken us a little bit more time.
So Darcy, what kind of flexibility do you have in the chart of accounts when you prepare these budgets?
Well, we follow BAR's accounting, which is the state of Washington's prescribed accounting chart of accounts. So we don't have a lot of discretion. We need to, we have a certain coding that we use for different types of revenues and certain coding that we use for different types of expenses within a category. Like I mentioned earlier, that 53s are supplies. So we have different types of supplies that we've chosen to put in there that are meaningful for management purposes. And then we report up to the state at that supplies level. So we have some discretion in the itemized portion of a category. The only other thing that we'll need to kind of contend with is it is one chart of accounts that is serving the city as a whole. So we only have so much latitude to change those, like, just for example, if I'm going to use just a nonsensical example, it might not match reality, but if we had many legal services line items and it was 54.1, 54.2, 54.3, once we got to 9 at the bottom, we've run out of that category of expenses. So we have to somehow fit it in the sequence of numbers that is available. Does that help?
Yes. So as long as we can somehow try to, again, connect what we're going to try to accomplish in 2023 with this scheduling report to connect it to the financial budget so we can see our progress go side by side. I hope that makes sense.
I know I am striving for that.
Okay. Very good. Okay. Item number 8, new business, City of Pasco Financial Services presentation.
And while Darcy's headed up there, I just want to try again to point out that I wanted to introduce, much like I did several months ago, some of the different departments. You're very familiar with what finance has been doing because you've been using their services ever since Kennewick had a project. That said, the PFD is going to potentially be using a variety of services under, we'll use a loose quote, of finance, but there's actually a variety of things that are beyond that as well. So what I wanted to do is just point out that, or have the finance folks introduce themselves, and they're also going to be here on a more and more consistent basis, possibly quarterly. And then also like I said, the notion that finance is the end all be all, it's actually more complicated than that. You have other functions in the city that we've probably been using colloquially the term finance, but things like contracts or procurement or potentially human resources or other features that certainly I think the finance department has exposure to and will do their best to help us facilitate. But I wanted to use the month of December to introduce finance staff, Ms. Darcy Buckley, and also her assistant Griselda Garcia, the finance manager. That's background and Mr. Morissette.
Very good. So then we'll turn it over to you ladies. And being an accountant, I don't mind if you go way too far into this presentation. It'll be fun.
Okay.
Others might not, but go ahead.
I'll watch for eyes to kind of go, oh.
Yes, there you go.
That's enough. Mercy.
It's all yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for this time to come and meet with you and talk about what the finance department does. I have called myself a accounting nerd many times, and I love to talk about it and like people to understand. So sometimes I have to curb my talking because I'm just wearing people out and not helping them understand. So please have questions. If you have questions, please ask them, and we'll have more time over the next many years to share this experience and what we do together. So thank you. I'm going to start with a very brief overview of fund accounting. Can make all kinds of bad accountant jokes with the word fund there, but I'll stay away. What with the municipal governments, and I apologize off the front, I was doing this on my laptop, and then when we got in here, I thought, oh gosh, that's really hard to read. So that's partially why Griselda was kind enough to go get a printout off the printer real quick. But municipal accounting requires fund accounting, and a fund is, there's a long description there of what a fund is. Basically, it holds all of the elements of financial activity, whether it's assets, liabilities, ownership or equity, revenues or expenses, for a specific purpose. We have for the city, the general fund, which takes care of most of the things that you would think of as city functions that are governmental functions like police or fire. And then we have a variety of other funds that we keep track of specific transactions in, because the dollars that we receive and the use of those dollars needs to be tracked separately and uniquely so people can see that they're getting what the funding is for. The outcome was the original intention. And so the simple way of thinking of it is each fund is kind of a mini business record under the umbrella of the city. And then within that fund accounting, we have different types of funds. Some are governmental, which, like I just mentioned, police or fire. The finance department is in the general fund, so we're a governmental purpose kind of activity, whereas others are proprietary and are business type, like you have your utility bill. Those are proprietary funds, and we account for them differently. The proprietary funds are holding activity that are, I would assume that Mr. Morissette is more accustomed to seeing with businesses. We make entries based on the financial impact of a decision, not necessarily that we received cash or we spent cash. And so the proprietary is a little more what people probably might expect to see. And then governmental funds, we do those, or that accounting is on a cash basis with a few adjustments at year end to get things in the right year. And our financial system, which I talked about a little when we were looking at the request for budget supplement, is on a cash basis. So as we make transactions throughout the month, things are recorded. They're related to actual activity, not accruals. We have to do those on a unique basis. So at year end, we'll go make a bunch of entries to kind of get the things on the margin that need to be recorded in the year. And these are common types of funds: the general fund, special revenue funds, which as we move to the PFD, having operations, and that would be a special revenue fund. We have a capital improvement fund for capital improvements in buildings and streets and things like that we're spending money, and we account for that separately from the operational funds. And then debt service to pay for either, the funds, the proceeds that come in when we issue debt, or making payments towards that debt and paying it down. And then finally, like I said, those proprietary funds that are business type. And then for the PFD, we're doing some research because as we're embarking on a new, both operational and a large project for the PFD. We've not done that in the finance department for the city of Pasco yet, so we are researching. There is a specific title in the revised code of Washington related to PFD, so we're going to do a little research there. We have reached out to the state auditor's office, and we'll probably put some help desk information. They have a good tool where we can ask questions and try to get as much information in advance to make the transition as smooth as possible and make sure we're giving you all good information and we're recording things as the auditor's office would want, and a very clear piece of information. And sorry, I lost my train of thought there. But with those changes, the things that we see coming that have not happened within the realm of the PFD interaction with finance department or the city as a whole is project management and procurement or purchasing things, issuing debt and paying for that debt. The PFD in the past has had where finance has presented the little reports that you received today, but they don't have necessarily, and of course, Mr. Watkins' good help moving this along in a kind of executive role for the PFD, but there's not an administrative department help layer there right now, so we need to work towards that, and I'll explain that a little better as we move into what finance does versus what other departments do. Treasury management, meaning we're going to start getting sales tax for specific purchases and more deposits and more spending, so we'll need to make sure that we reconcile that cash specifically for the PFD and that volume of activity that's growing. Perhaps some information systems support in the future and human resources depending upon, staffing and what kind of operating system comes into play for running the PFD. And then there is an expansion of internal control and audit impact. One of the things that one thing that leads to certain things being done in a department, like the human resources department or engineering versus finance, one of those lines of distinction is internal controls. And so some things they do because as the payers and the reconcilers of accounts, we can't do. And so that will be something to look at. And then finally, we anticipate that audit impact will be different. We may have audits that end up having to occur more frequently from the auditor's office just because of the growth of revenue. Excuse me, I should have a glass of water. Revenue for the PFD. Okay, so now we're moving into, I want to explain what finance services are provided citywide. These are the things that the finance department currently does for the city as a whole, and to a much smaller level for the PFD. It has recently, previously been operating before the approval of the vote and the aquatic center. We provide financial oversight and guidance. We also do all the financial reporting for the city, so a budget document and annual reports. We do one big annual report for the city as a whole, but then we also have small reports that we turn in for a streets report and maybe 2 different granting agencies and information like that. We have payroll that we process, the debt service, so we do facilitate and help move along bond issuances, and then payment of those as the payments become due, they're processed in the finance department. Accounts payable and accounts receivable processing, and utility billing and treasury management. I should have paused sooner. Do you have any questions? No? Okay. So I think I tried to put this little pyramid on there, or I did, because it's a good picture of that. A lot of times the things that are look like they're a finance product, and they are a finance product, but it's really the tip of an iceberg below the waterline, essentially. There's a lot of work that's done at the department level. So at the department, the things that get done are things like if they have a project, or whether it be a smaller project like a contract for services, or a larger contract like a big capital project, they are overseeing and planning that project and working on the procurement of services or goods. They take care of all that invoice information, like we talked about, legal, invoicing. The invoices go to the department. They look at it to make sure that, yes, they receive the service and the invoice is accurate. And then they put that in our financial system, and finance audits and processes that information, either issues a payment or a payroll check or a bill to another agency or a person if that's necessary to get revenue. And then we have a collaborative review process. And one thing that does happen, but has not previously happened with the PFD, is we have staff accountants assigned to certain departments or funds. And so they meet on a monthly basis with that department or fund. And that's kind of what we talked about would probably start happening here. To go over the report and to talk about activity and compare it to the budget line item so that there is more assurance, and they can make adjustments when necessary throughout the year. And then finally, there's reports that come out that are for a larger disbursement to council or the state auditor's office or to the public as a whole. And the other departments that I kind of went through that list of things that we foresee, and we're not too sure, they have to do with timing of decisions and timing of the project, but where we're not sure, I guess I should backtrack a little. The city has prepared their 2023-2024 budget, and as part of that budget, we included from the finance department half an FTE to help with traditional, kind of that same process that I talked about with a staff accountant, where they meet with the department, go over the budget, give financial guidance, help with, coding or the best way to process something. And the debt issuance, we could foresee that finance would need a person to help with that on an ongoing basis. So we added that to the budget. So we're prepared for that. But as far as the other departments and the making decisions, talking to you all and trying to talk to them and figure out how do we make sure that we provide the support that's needed for a successful project and moving forward, that those things that are the things that we're trying to grapple with and get input from you all, and then input from the departments and plan with Mr. Watkins and Zach Radkai also how we move forward. I don't think. This is just an example because I thought it'd make more sense than me blabbering on and on. Like for purchasing, to explain that tip of the iceberg thing, process, if a department is going to purchase something, they refer to our purchasing policy, which is driven by state guideline, and we have to follow it, and it is detailed, and there are definitely requirements that need to be met depending on what type of spending and the level of the spending. So they refer to the purchasing policy and make sure that they know what they need to do at the department level. Then there's different things that may be required, like competitive bidding, or a contract needs to be issued. And then they, once they get the invoice, they make sure that they got the service or good, they code it, they enter it, and the manager approves it, because one thing that we always have to do is verify that we received the service are good. And then that last one where it's gray, it looks gray here, is that the finance department, where the finance department comes into play, where we audit, we make sure that all the documentation is sufficient to support the spending, and then we issue payment. So what we've talked a little bit about is this, with the new changes, how we'll need to work on how those first three levels of that process get initiated and processed to get it to finance with the changes in the PFD's operations and the capital work that's pending. And then this is support from other departments.
Question.
Oh, yes.
I am not an accountant.
Okay.
So you are doing the auditing and the big stuff on top of a pyramid, and then below that, someone else is doing accounting. If they need another box of nails, who does that?
If they needed another box of nails, someone within that department would go.
So is this accounting part of Matt Watkins' job?
That's not something, I would not think so. I would think that he's at the top level, and so we need, he's
So there's
directing.
more layering?
Say that one more time, I'm sorry.
There's more layers?
Yes, there's more layers. Yeah, so we need someone at the department level, or there's not a framework at this point in time
Oh, that's
within
why
the
I'm confused.
PFD operationally to do those first steps to buy things and make sure that we get, or make a contract, and follow up on that contract and make sure that progress is being made before we make payments, so that on that previous slide where there were kind of those three example bullets that were blue, that were action items to get it to the point where it came to finance, those three blue ones were kind of grappling with, we need to have that framework and support in place so that we can, work through the process.
So at some point, we will have to hire an accountant who is below Mr. Watkins.
I think we'll need to talk about the best way to do that. I don't think it probably, that's a decision certainly that I won't be making, but I'm happy to provide input. And I don't know that an accountant even would be the right person for that. It's more of maybe, do you want to?
Let me take a stab at it, because I think this illustrates a public facilities district. You have a new project, and you technically need to recreate all of this structure to be able to act as a public entity. Okay. Why do that, though, if our sister agency, let's call Pasco a sister agency in this point, does all of this? Let's lean heavily where at all possible on the city to use their services. And as I've shared before, we've been using finance for things. It's going to get more complex, and there's additional services. And I think Darcy is highlighting some of those things that are going to come in front of the board and how you would like to do it. Certainly, the board can do all of this and go get a staff person for each of these positions. Practical matter, you're probably not going to want to do that. But I think what she is doing is laying out the arrangement that the city can help the PFD, because former city manager, current city manager very much want to help the public facilities district. Zach's nodding as well. So it makes sense to use city resources on most of these. I think the answer is going to be yes. It's just that Darcy's highlighting some of the things.
So does our project, will it be requiring a full-time accountant or just part-time?
I don't think we were necessarily going to require an accountant at all, assuming we'll be able to use city resources. There will probably be a fraction of an FTE that might be needed for those and other services.
Okay. Thank you.
Currently, the framework, or the city does all the things, and we are, understand and want and are ready to assist. It's just there's a little gap between point A and finance to get everything actual processing wise. And so that little gap we need to figure out. So, but we can do that. We just want to talk to you and explain that a little bit.
The support from other departments is things that the city can help us with.
It is, except for we need to go out and talk to the other departments and see what kind of, I don't know that every department can absorb that with their current staff. They might need to add staff to be able to provide that, because we do work to, run a pretty lean ship and not have extra people on site that don't have a task and a duty to do. So we need to step back to the departments, and definitely there's layers. Like the first layer is just the work to issue the bonds and build the capital project. And then once we get to the point of operating, that'll be a different layer, and decisions will be needed to be made there. But all the operations of the city are in place, and using them within supporting the PFD makes good sense. But we're trying to make sure that, given the staffing that is currently at the city, that we're prepared to take on these other things that aren't really traditional finance duties. They're done in a department. So, but we're going to work on that, and we'll be able to come back, I think, in January and present more as we talk to departments and see how that all plays out, and the best arrangement to support the PFD well. We'll be able to give more information.
So then, Darcy and Zach, is this something that she's describing here? Is this going to be included in that interlocal agreement? Is this where this will show up?
Yeah, I think that's where we wanted to take, and Finance's comments was really that we've had this discussion over the last couple of weeks on how to really map that out in the interlocal agreement to solidify that between the two agencies. So long answer short, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Just the final slide is that we're looking forward to working together and having a plan and having everything right sized to provide the support that is needed for the PFD. So, thank you. Any other questions?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Actually, I do have a question, and or two, if you don't mind. You hit on it a little bit. You mentioned that the city does run things fairly lean and mean, and I also appreciate that you've highlighted some things that we've probably just generically lumped into the drawer of finance, and helping us to work through those details in the coming months is appreciated. Would you say there is potentially some lead time as the PFD does more and more things, potentially procurements and that sort of thing, is that we're going to have to ask you to potentially augment some talent or some other staffing that way. You also tend to run on a seasonal schedule. One part of the year is more busy than others. What do you foresee as your department's workload in, say, the coming year? What's it look like?
Well, we have a very full and exciting year planned in the finance department. We typically, the first, and this, I'll understand if you think that's forever, because when I'm in the midst of it, I think it takes forever. We close year end and then produce a financial report, and that takes till we have to have the financial report done. It's a citywide report by mid-April, and it takes pretty much every moment of that time to get that report done. We have operational ongoing things that we still occur, but for the accounting staff, that keeps us very busy. And then we usually get audited after that, and that ends probably end of May. Then this year, since we did have a biennial budget, this year we won't be doing a budget. We will do a mid-biennium adjustment towards November, but we have a little break there. But we'll work on the capital improvement plan, and then just regular ongoing monthly activity and meeting with departments and talking to them. Probably the other thing that is the exciting part is including the PFD and issuing debt to help we know that that's something we're going to be tasked with helping issue that debt. The other thing that we have, or things, is other debt related to the tax incremental financing that's going to occur out in the Broadmoor area. So we're going to issue debt for that. And then we have a fire station to build that is going to be bonded most likely. So the finance department this year is pretty busy, especially in this first few months, whether between the annual report and cash, looking at all those projects and trying to kind of lay them. We are working on a cash flow plan based on projects and when we think spending will occur and when we need to issue those different debt instruments. But hopefully, I think, hopefully by the end of May, our audit will be completed and we'll be able to be a little more free, and it'll be more subdued. We'll have a little breathing space. So, but we do anticipate being involved in the bond issuance around hopefully April. Our one snag that we always run to is when we try to issue debt sooner. Whenever we issue a bond, we have an official statement that we have to provide, and they'd ask for our financial statements, and whether they're audited or not, they prefer them to be audited, and so that, of course, happens later in the year. But we have at times issued the debt sooner, but we kind of have to hurry up in that beginning of the year period when we're trying to close our books and issue that financial report and make a draft and then work on the real one. And so it kind of can get the process a little convoluted and challenging, and we kind of do something twice when we're doing that a little bit. So if we can get the annual report done, that really helps smooth the workload out a little bit. Does that help? Okay.
Darcy, thank you for your presentation.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for
A
listening
question.
to me.
We are going to begin collecting tax revenue as of January 1. Are you geared up to account for all that?
Yes, we can do that. That we have it come in. We have a fund, so and revenue that where we already collect sales tax, and so that process is in place, and so we can do that. And we could. I have looked at our chart accounts as far as area, but I'm sure there's enough space to maybe make two where we have the extra percent in a separate line, so that we have what has always been versus the new sales tax. Oh,
Just want to point out that, like we mentioned earlier, the taxes are 2 months behind, so we won't actually see that funding until about March.
I have one other quick question. As we move into our bonding, when does the finance group here at the city come in? Do they come in after the bonding is issued, or when do you guys start to get involved?
We get involved from the first at the start. So typically what happens is we have a bond counsel, which is a legal advice, advisors, Northwest advisors group that helps us, financial advisors, and an underwriter. And so that team is a really good team, and they send information to us of what they need, what kind of statistics they need, the financial report they need. I've not done this process for a PFD, but for utilities or like when we issue debt for a fire station, there's an actual statement that goes at the front of the bond offering that talks all about the city and has all kinds of information, how many our population, what the financial makeup of the population is, if it's for the utilities, how much revenue and how many types of residential accounts versus commercial. So we get involved at the very beginning with that, with them helping guide that process. So we'll be there right at the start.
Any other questions for Griselda and Darcy? If not, is there any final closing comments for us? Otherwise, I think
I think the only
we
other
put a
thing,
wrap on it.
we can. The only other thing that was on the little list had to do with audits, and I didn't know if you want to talk about that at all right now. Griselda is the champion audit person. She she used to work for the state auditor's office, and she's very good at explaining audit related things, but we could save it for another meeting too.
But how about just the notion, the PFD will likely be audited in the coming year.
Yes, and it's very brief. You all have a handout, it's just a one-page handout, and it just has a brief description. It's straight from the auditor's office. It has the 3 different types of audits, and the only one that the PFD currently has is an accountability audit every 3 years. With the uptick in the activity that will be coming in the next year, most likely there'll be an audit in 24 for all the 23 activity, and most likely the frequency of the audits and the types of audits will increase. So this is just more, we'll go into more detail later on, but this is just a little bit of kind of a heads up that the audits will increase, and there will be more than just one audit. There'll be most likely an accountability and a financial audit in 2024.
And your department will assist us.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, currently when the PFD gets audited, finance is the liaison there and provides them all the information and does the majority of the work there when those audits occur. But again, they are only every 3 years, but that will change in the future. And that's all there is regarding the audits for now.
All right, thank you. Thank you, ladies. Go ahead, Darcy.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Next item under new business, the sales tax analysis personal service agreement with Steve Nolan. So that's in our packet, and there's a it's dated December the 12th, 2022. And in the upper left-hand part of the page, it reads Nolan Consulting, Pasco Aquatic Center sales tax generation analysis, and there's a proposed scope of work. And Matt, is this something you're gonna
Yes.
walk us through? Go ahead.
Yes, and this is an item that you, or a service that you had done in, I believe, 2021 when I was not here. This would be an update to that. There's a couple of terms that Mr. Nolan's updated. Also, it was during the time of COVID, so the timeliness of updating this information now that we're emerging from COVID and the sales tax picture will be a little bit different. And it's also now that we have an actual project to do as opposed to one that's theoretical. I also asked him if it would be largely an update to the material he provided before. I think there's also the potential, instead of doing it remote on Skype or for him to actually visit and come do that. And that's the updated potential cost of up to about $8,600 for this particular service is the bottom line of what it would cost if you want to proceed and have an update on the financial tax generation analysis.
So Matt, under the scope of work there in the left column where it reads document/data, updated estimates of land acquisition, construction, operational costs, and then the source, update Ballard King study.
Yeah.
So before Mr. Nolan does his work, do we need to update the Ballard King study?
That is, you hit the one section, and this is another one of those chicken and egg things. I've talked with Zach, and we don't believe that needs to be updated for this particular piece. That we can use the existing numbers and extrapolate from there on that particular part of it. If we were to, I guess it would be an option to do the Ballard King update, but we would need to pause this, go engage Ballard King, and then come back to this. I'd suggest moving forward with what we have.
You suggest doing what?
Moving forward with what we have.
And not get an updated Ballard King study?
Correct.
Okay. When was that last Ballard King study updated? Anybody remember?
I was gonna look to Dave or Zach. Zach had to go because of another thing that I believe it was 2016, or well, actually. Oh, since you've been here. 2020 sounds about, I remember seeing some in 2020.
Well,
Well, I think there was a 2016 and then there was also a 2020.
Okay.
I would suggest that we get that study updated because it had the subsidy numbers in there.
August 2020.
Yeah, it had an operational budget, a construction budget, and it had the number of personnel and the square footage. Myself, I don't know what the other board members think and feel about this, but I think we should get an updated study.
One possibility is, might it be possible, I could check, I don't have an answer tonight, but see if we could do a very narrow update with Ballard King for the information that would be needed for this analysis. Might be able to do that in parallel, still commit to the agreement with Nolan, and then between now and the next month, I could go see.
Okay.
about
Do you
an
still
update.
have that paperwork I gave you that was very specific about the things that I thought we should be,
Yes.
you still have that?
Mhm.
So if, I would encourage that be the narrow study then.
Okay.
Caroline?
I'm having trouble hearing Matt's voice is getting very soft, and
Mr. Morset's asking whether it makes sense to have to update the Ballard King information before, or, and I offered in parallel to this. I think that might be possible. I don't have a definitive answer on what it would take to re-engage Ballard King, but my hope would be that we'd be able to do it more narrowly for the material that Mr. Nolan needs. And I might be able to come back in January with an update, or to go ahead with an update with Ballard King, and not hold this part of it up.
Yeah, again, I'm of the opinion that when you start going out and having community meetings, that we should probably have as current numbers as we can.
yeah.
There is it is a little bit of the chicken and the egg thing here too, in that I wonder what the chances are if I go with Ballard King, they're going to want updated tax numbers for their analysis. I jest, but getting everything coordinated it seems to be a little bit of a trick here.
Well, we'll let the numbers people sort that out, I guess.
Okay.
I'm fine with the agreement. I just think we should take it in order and update the Ballard King study first. Is that, Marie, go ahead.
I would agree that only some portions of the Ballard King study need to be updated. I don't know that we need them to tell us how much we should budget for the land acquisition, because I think there are other things in play. I think it would be helpful if they did help us with the construction and operational costs. I agree with Matt that I think we could probably go forward with the sales tax update analysis by Mr. Nolan in parallel with or prior to the Ballard King update.
In fact, I would also note too that Steve, when he did sent this, he sent me a little additional detail on some of the things that he anticipated under the Ballard King part of it. If there were, say, 5 or 6 questions, I looked at them and then approximately half of them actually could be answered alternatively. So there might be a bit of a hybrid sort of thing here. My suggestion would be to approve this tonight, and I'll follow up with in the January meeting on something with Ballard King because also Mr. Nolan, from the last time, he's switched from more of a full-time operation to that of a retired person. So I think he does have some flexibility as well. I would just note that if we do get both pieces of information, that's probably going to make the material that Mr. Nolan presents more like a February or March timeframe. Is my anticipation. Depending now on what Ballard King's availability as well.
Okay, there is a motion that if we're finished our discussion, there is a motion to be read to approve this personal service agreement with Steve Nolan. Are we ready for the motion and the vote, or is there more discussion? Go ahead, Marie. You go ahead and read the motion.
I move to approve the personal services agreement with Steve Nolan to perform a financial analysis update as detailed in the proposed scope of work and authorize the PPFD executive director to execute the contract documents.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
So it's been moved by Marie and seconded by Spence to approve the personal services agreement with Steve Nolan. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Hearing no opposed, the motion carries. Next item under new business is item C, request for qualifications.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Matt, does that include touching base with Ballard King about the,
I interpret that motion to be include, yes, to touching base with Ballard King. I will engage Mr. Nolan at the same time. I will also inquire from Ballard King as well.
Thank you.
And see if I can put a little finer point on that particular point on the source.
Okay, so item number C under new business, request for qualifications, owners representative. Matt? is
Yes.
this something- Go ahead.
At the last
And
meeting.
this is in our packet also, I think everybody.
Yeah, there is a one-page handout. At the last meeting, we talked about whether or not it's time to consider going for what's called an owner's representative. And the board was amenable to following up on that. Not ready this evening to say, yes, go pick them tomorrow, but what I wanted to do is share an update with that. It's a fairly elaborate process to do an owner's representative, and I've done my best to distill the essence of that process. In owner's representative, we've actually had several folks approach us with some interest. They would, of course, be potential candidates. An owner's representative might be beneficial to the PFD because they're going to have the depth of experience about designing and building, and also which particular contract model to go forward, more depth than I'm going to be able to provide, certainly. So what I did is I leaned on our Public Works Department. Mr. Worley was very helpful, provided actually a 40-page process for picking an owner's representative. And again, the distillation, the basics of it is going to be about qualifications and history of doing similar types of projects, references, understanding what the PFD wants to do, approach and that sort of thing. So I kind of highlighted general grading criteria. If you would like to move forward with an owner's representative, I think I am close to being able to solicit for those requests for qualifications in the coming month. And if we get to a point where we want to actually choose somebody, I'd suggest having a selection team that would have one or two of the PFD board members, including myself, Mr. Radkai, and also Mr. Worley or one of his designees to pick a person that's not only going to be qualified, but also fit with what you're going to want to do and being able to take us through a very big part of this project, from design, potentially some public outreach, through construction and all of those details. So this position is that important position I know that you've talked about in the past, and this would be the path to get to there. With that, I would entertain any questions.
So this doesn't need to be put into a motion and a vote. This is just something that the board as a consensus.
I want to
Gives you
elicit
direction
discussion and ask, quite bluntly, am I on the right track to go find you an owner's representative is what I was looking for tonight. And taking a look at this, am I close to it?
My input here is this is absolutely necessary if we want to hit any kind of schedule going forward. There are so many decisions and so many details to be taken care of that cannot be handled by the day-to-day business of the board, because we meet once a month and none of us have time to do this full time. And I think this goes beyond what Matt can handle. We need someone experienced to be able to do this, and we need to do it right away.
question?
Go ahead.
So Matt, your first, the first thing you would do is ask for the SOQs.
Yes. There is a market out there. The folks that do this kind of work are going to see this go out as we'll solicit certainly through the newspaper. They monitor for this kind of work. And again, there was One, a gentleman named Earl Eastman, his firm is local. They've had some experience with school districts. I also talked with Mr. Worley, and there's 2 or 3 other companies in the Tri-Cities and the region that does this kind of work, so it's not a surprise. Yeah, I think also there's probably a common example. School districts, when they go build a giant new high school, tend to have owner representatives, and they're a person that does go the breadth of that project. They know many of the details. They're typically also engineers and have the educational background and depth on that, and that also experience with boards, in their case, school districts might be an alternative, or cities. I don't think it's going to be a big jump for this particular market of talent to be able to do and be interested in an aquatics facility with a public facilities district.
I don't think it's any big deal to go ahead and put out the invitation for the statement of qualifications, so we get a list of people that we would be able to choose from when that time comes.
And I almost thought about doing that, but I was not, it has been a busy 3 weeks since we met last time, and I'd anticipate working on that between now and the January meeting, which is also during the Christmas holidays too, so it's going to be another little bit of a short month, so to speak, but I'd at the very least have an update next month. If not, well, let me be specific, I'd ask Ms. Gillespie to be a member of a one-person committee again, unless, or in addition, if there's another board member who would like to be part of that process.
I'd love to.
Very good. Sounds like there's another committee formed.
And I appreciate
Yes.
it too, because I think these are the kinds of things that you wanted me to be involved with to inch down the field, and this is another example of those. So thank you for being supportive of that.
Very good. So there's a consensus, we'll go ahead with this process and you'll keep us posted. All right, very good. So now we go to item number 9, executive session. The Pasco Public Facilities District Board will now meet in executive session to discuss consideration of site selection or acquisition of real estate purchase or lease if likelihood that disclosure would increase price per RCW 42.30.110, parentheses 1, parentheses lowercase b. And we'll be in executive session until 5:51.
And Mr. Chair, I would just note that besides the board members, that I myself, the attorney, and Mr. Zabel would be in attendance of that executive session.
Okay. So we'll adjourn till then. Okay, it is 5:55 PM and I call the special meeting back to order. So at this point, we are on agenda item 10, which is adjournment. First of all, when are we going to meet again?
You bring that up. It is the third Tuesday of January, 17th.
So January the 17th, right here in the council chambers?
Yes.
Okay, and that's going to be at 4 PM again. Right? Okay. Is there any other business to come before the board? If not, we will adjourn until January the 17th, 2023. Thank you.